Welcome to my lecture, Catalysts for Sustainable Circular Economy. My name is Hanna Lehtimäki, and I'm a Professor of Innovation Management at the University of Eastern Finland, and I'm also a Director in Research Center for Sustainable Circular Economy. I have been working on the topics of sustainable circular economy for over 5 years with my research group, Sustainable Innovation Lab, and also I'm working in multidisciplinary research related to circular economy in plastics and circular economy related to battery metals. That work is multidisciplinary, and a lot of that is being done as part of our University of Eastern Finland strategic research area called Sustainable Resource Society. And I'm really happy to say that I've been able to publish several books. One of them is the Routledge Handbook of Catalyzing Sustainable Circular Economy. And I will be talking based on that book today, and it is an open access book that is available to everyone. In this lecture, I will be talking about what is sustainable circular economy and why do we need it. We will also cover what are the catalysts for sustainable circular economy in business and society. And then we will look a little bit what can individuals, every one of us, can do in catalyzing the sustainability transition. And then I will at the end show you some references that I have been using and some useful websites where you can find more information about the topic. But before we go to the actual topic of catalyzing sustainable circular economy, let's first start by imagining that we are sitting by a fire in a Finnish forest. You can imagine all the birds chirping and the sounds and smells of nature around us. I'm a big coffee fan, and I love to cook coffee on a fire. And the way you cook coffee on an outside fire pit, you first put the kettle on and you pour water there, and you start waiting for the water to start boiling. And we can imagine how the water boils in a kettle. First, there's nothing happening for a long time. The water is very still. Then you can observe some small movement. Then you can see how the bubbles start to emerge and move, and all that movement intensifies and becomes more rapid. And eventually the water molecules start to evaporate, and that is the moment when the water starts boiling. And of course, forecasting how the water boils is very difficult, and it's very difficult to know exactly when it starts to happen, and it is also very difficult to see how the little bubbles move and how they affect each other. And we use this as a metaphor for systemic transition and circular economy transition. And catalyst is a metaphor for something that puts the sustainable circular economy transition into motion and maintains that motion. So a catalyst is something that triggers and puts something forward. And even though we can at that moment see only probabilities about what might happen, and there are several surprises, we can still detect some of the mechanisms, and we can understand how change triggers, facilitates and actualize transition processes and create a push for sustainable circular economy. In many ways, catalysts initiate, create and maintain favorable conditions for complex systemic change in sustainability transition. And they give an impulse to put systemic change in motion. You can now imagine how I put the grounded coffee beans to the water, let it sit for a little bit, and then now I'm ready to serve you a little bit of coffee while we are listening to the rest of the lecture, or engaging in the rest of the lecture. So what is sustainable circular economy? Before we can catalyze it, we need to understand what it is. So what is sustainable circular economy? The International Organization for Standardization has just now come up with, and they will publish the first definition that has been created in interaction with many people from many different kinds of organizations. This is now the latest definition of circular economy. When you look at literature or websites or find information, there are very many ways to define what circular economy is. And I think this most updated definition is very important, because this is closely connected to then how to measure and assess the quality of sustainable circular economy aspects in business in particular. So according to the International Organization for Standardization, circular economy is an economic system that uses a systemic approach to maintain a circular flow of resources by recovering, retaining, or adding to their value while contributing to sustainable development. In their definition, what is important to notice is that resources can be considered both as stocks and as flows. And what they want to emphasize is that the target is to keep the inflow of virgin resources as low as possible, and the circular flow of resources as closed as possible, to minimize waste, losses, and release from economic system. Our current economic system can be considered a linear economy, and that is built on a model of extracting raw materials from nature and turning them into products, and then discarding them as waste. The statistics show that only 7.2% of used materials are cycled back into our economies after use. And of course, this has a significant burden on the environment and contributes to the climate, biodiversity, and pollution crises. So in contrast to linear economy, circular economy aims to minimize waste and promote sustainable use of natural resources through smarter product design, longer use of products and materials, recycling, inventing novel business models, for instance service business model concepts. And the main idea is to try and create an economic system that doesn't only fix the problems caused by the linear economy, but an economic system that can actually regenerate nature. In this figure you can see that the aim is to keep materials in the cycle of things and try and minimize the use of natural resources, and also try and minimize the output that is considered as ultimate waste. Here's another figure about a circular economy, and this is produced by Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and this is a really famous known as butterfly diagram, and this shows the continuous flow of materials in a circular economy. What I find particularly interesting in this figure is that it shows that there are two main cycles, the technical cycle and the biological cycle, and thereby this highlights the importance of keeping the biological material apart from the technical material. In the technical cycle, products and materials are kept in circulation through processes such as reuse, repair, remanufacture, and recycling. And in the biological cycle, in turn, the nutrients from biodegradable materials are returned to the earth to regenerate nature. So, the circular economy moves the needle from traditional linear economies, where products are made, used, and then discarded. You see here in the middle the recycling economy, which highlights the importance of recycling to reduce some waste. But what is very important to notice is that recycling economy is not same as circular economy. Instead, the circular economy goes much further by creating a virtuous circle around the use that includes making, repairing, refurbishing, and reusing, remanufacturing, and recycling. So as you can see, recycling is only a small part of circular economy, where there are very many other cycles with which we can reduce the use of natural resources and reduce the amount of waste that goes out to the nature. Okay, here was a really brief explanation about what circular economy is. But some of you might ask, well, why do we need circular economy? Why don't we just stick with the linear economy and keep on doing things as we have been doing for several decades since the start of the Industrial Revolution? Well, one reason why we need circular economy is that scientists are saying that we now live, or we are moving into, an era of Anthropocene. And it refers to the time during which humans have had a substantial impact on our planet. So we now live in an era of Holocene, which has been the geological era for the past 10,000 years or so. And now, based on an overwhelming global evidence that the different aspects of nature have been altered by humans, scientists are saying that we are now entering an era of Anthropocene. And there's a lot of impact, or a lot of evidence on the human impact on nature. For instance, this planetary boundaries framework describes the limits within which humanity can continue to develop and thrive for generations to come. The idea is that we should keep all our operations within the planetary boundaries. And these 9 planetary boundaries were first proposed by Johan Rockström and a group of scientists in Sweden in 2009. And since then their framework has been revised several times. Now the last update, just a year ago, quantified all 9 boundaries, and it concludes that the 6 of the 9 boundaries have been transgressed. These boundaries are interrelated processes within the complex biophysical Earth system, and crossing boundaries increases the risk of generating large-scale abrupt or irreversible environmental changes. And these types of drastic changes don't necessarily happen overnight, but together the boundaries mark a critical threshold for increasing risks to people and the ecosystems that we are part of. Another evidence of Anthropocene is related to pollution, and of course pollution at large, but plastic pollution in particular. And the great amount of tons of plastic waste that is produced annually, only 10% is recycled. 70% of that plastic waste goes to landfills or is incinerated, and 20% of plastic waste just goes to the nature, causing severe problems of microplastics and nanoplastics. And as many of you know, these very, very tiny particles of plastics have been found in plants, in animals, and in humans. And no one really knows what this pollution might cause in animals, in plants, and in humans. There are the statistics about climate warming. The annual global mean temperature anomalies are shown here in this figure from 1850s to 2023. And data from different data sets show that the climate really is warming at an accelerating rate. And then finally, the issue of biodiversity. And this figure shows that if we don't do anything, the loss of biodiversity will be very severe by 2100. But the good news is that if we take ambitious action, we can still bend the curve and regenerate nature and produce positive outcomes to the nature. So why do we need sustainable circular economy? I think the statistics show the severeness of the environmental situation in the global economy right now. And of course, looking at these statistics and listening to the messages from the scientists about the state of our global environment raises concerns and even anxiety. And my message is not that we should get into despair, but instead what I want to say is that let's not get trapped into a firefighting mode, even though it seems that the world around us is burning. And what I mean is that when listening to these statistics and looking at the data, it is very easy to engage in urgent problem solving, or even worse, just feel like giving up if the fire seems to be so big that it just feels that it takes over and there's nothing we can do. Instead of the firefighting mode, we need to maintain hope so that we can harness our creativity and innovation in seeking solutions to the environmental problems our human activity is causing. So instead of a firefighting mode, we need to reframe, and we need to be honest about it. So what was, what is, and also be a bit imaginative of what might be, what is the desired future we would like to see for generations to come. And this kind of reframing allows for shifting the viewpoint from the visibly insurmountable macro-level issues to small changes that are possible to attend to at the local and individual level. And based on our research and the connections that I have in industry and in public sector, both in Finland and abroad, it is really assuring to see that there are a lot of actions taking place in different types of organizations to promote sustainable circular economy practices. There are companies, cities, public sector organizations, private sector organizations, third sector organizations. And I think what we need now is that there needs to be more ambitious and long-term action in all of these organizations to actually make the change and to start catalyzing and accelerating the transition to sustainable economy. And circular economy is part of that type of a movement. So I think the statistics above also show that economy and society are not independent from nature. So that is one mindset change that needs to happen. And I think it is pretty clear that even though economy has been using the natural resources to generate well-being for humans and economic wealth, we can also understand that a well-functioning economy also needs biodiversity. We need to reduce the climate warming and reduce pollution because economy, society and nature are intertwined and interdependent from each other. Also, as I said already, sustainable circular economy transition is a complex systemic change. And there are many aspects that are unpredictable. The change is multidimensional and a long-lasting change. And there are different temporalities, which means that sometimes things happen really, really quickly, and then sometimes there are really these slow periods when it seems that nothing is happening. But also there are multiple cause-effect relations related to all of this. So in sustainable circular economy transition, it is important to aim at system-level outcomes, because it is such a vast, big, profound change in our economy, transferring from linear to sustainable circular economy. And so we need many different actors engaged and involved, and we need the macro level changes, but we can also do a lot at the micro level, at the individual levels, and I will come back to that a little later to show what each one of us can do about sustainable circular economy. So circular economy can have a positive impact on environmental sustainability. For instance, reusing and recycling products would slow down the use of natural resources, reduce landscape and habitat disruption, and help to limit biodiversity loss. Also, creating more efficient and sustainable products from the start would help to reduce energy and resource consumption and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, reduction in waste generation in construction, mining, manufacturing, and in our households would really result in lesser impact on topsoil and reduce pollution. A lot can be done. So, catalyzing sustainable circular economy. In a project, KICAT 2025, Circular Economy Catalysts from Innovation to Business Economy Catalysts, there were close to 50 researchers, and we examined ways to accelerate the sustainability transition in business and society through circular economy. And in this project, we identified 5 types of catalysts. First, there are catalysts that trigger and put the circular economy transition into motion. Second, there are catalysts that challenge the rigid system properties, and that is needed for change to happen. Third, there are catalysts for evaluating the probabilities of what will happen next in the system. Of course, in a systemic change, there are very many institutionalized practices and institutionalized structures, and when a large transition and change starts to happen, it is not only the activities that people and organizations do, but it is also the structures that need to change somewhat. Then there are catalysts that maintain the momentum of change. And as I said earlier, there are several temporalities in this type of systemic change. So sometimes things happen slowly and sometimes things happen really quickly. And it is important to identify catalysts that maintain the change and sort of keep up the movement, even though it's sometimes very slow. And then there are catalysts that give impulses for the system change. And these impulses can happen at the beginning of the transition period, or they can happen in the middle of the process, or in different cycles of the process. And it is very important that there are catalysts that create favorable conditions for change so that it can keep on happening. Here are some examples about catalysts in business. Some of these catalysts, like eco-design or circular sourcing and procurement, prevent waste creation. Some of the catalysts preserve the function of products and services by value retention. Of course, what is of importance is to keep the value in the material as long as possible. So that's why reduce, reuse, repurpose is important. And of course, maintenance and repair and these types of things is very important. Also, there are catalysts that recover the value of resources. For instance, in industrial processes, reverse logistics, cascading of material, recycling, waste management, and so forth. Attention to energy consumption is also very important. And finally, as an example, there are catalysts that regenerate natural ecosystems by removing harmful substances from nature, remediation of soil and water bodies, protection of biodiversity, and so forth. Here are some examples of catalysts in society, and of course culture, the language, the narratives, the art and the meaning making that we do about our everyday lives and about business and societal structures is part of our culture. And it's quite important now that we live in this consumer culture. We could be called as consumer citizens, and it's quite important that we refuse and reduce material consumption. Cities are very central in circular economy transition, and the role of cities is significant in particular in construction industry, in public procurement, city planning, waste management and so forth, and of course citizen well-being. Much of circular economy activities happen in local contexts, and that is also important to remember. The role of government in catalyzing sustainable circular economy is very important through regulation and directives and law, and this type of top-down governance creates markets and also is important in reducing use of some materials while encouraging use of others. Of course, politics is also in play in very important role because, of course, there are a lot of issues of social justice that need to be addressed both globally and locally. Businesses do a lot of voluntary actions, and of course us in academic research have noticed that we need multidisciplinary research to catalyze the transition. Very briefly, I wanted to say that the history of circular economy is, or thinking around circular economy is quite long. So this is not a new concept. And already in 1950s, researchers started to think about circular economy and talk about the limited resources on the planet, the ecological impact of human activity, and the planetary boundaries and consumption. And then research fields such as industrial ecology, ecological and environmental economics, waste management, and cleaner production were very first in developing the field of circular economy. And now in 2000 and particularly 2020s, the field is gaining momentum in environmental politics and business studies, among others. And the interest really is in the cultural change and in commitment and participation of a variety of actors in actually making this change. So now the feeling is that we already have a lot of knowledge, we have the technologies, the engineering sciences have been working on circular economy solutions for a long time. But what is now needed is the implementation of circular economy thinking in society at large. And we have several advocate bodies like Ellen MacArthur Foundation and other national and regional networks, such as Nordic Circular Economy Hotspot Network, that produce knowledge about circular economy, share experiences from entrepreneurs and local regional decision makers, and also seek to influence the policy making to promote sustainable circular economy. Circular economy thinking has also faced some criticism, and it is very important because that way we can also develop the field further. But some of the critics say that economic and technological perspectives dominate circular economy thinking, that there's not enough questioning the economic growth, and that a complex and wicked problem requires that we pay attention to local context of circular economy and the vulnerable and marginalized people, both in the global south and in the global north. So I think overall what is needed is an increased understanding about the socio-cultural nature of sustainable circular economy transition, and we really need to understand how to reduce consumption and how to sort of change this consumption culture of our current society that is causing so much problems in the environment. As I said, the results of our research show that a lot is already going on, and we have interviewed very many people who are very enthusiastic about circular economy, and many of these people have been forerunners in circular economy. So what I find important is that in addition that we look at the circular economy transition at the macro level in society, it is also important that we look at the micro level, the individual levels, and how can individuals catalyze sustainable circular economy. I want to say a couple of things about the picture that you see here, and there are a few other pictures also. And in this KICAT 2025 research project, we created 25 guidelines for action to accelerate sustainable circular economy and the implementation of it in business and society. And all these pictures are based on our published academic articles and the results presented in them. And we collaborated with a graphic designer and artist, Jani Ikonen, to visualize the findings. But so, going back to thinking about how we can all promote and catalyze sustainable circular economy in our action. First of all, in our everyday lives, we can think about the choices we are making as consumers, and it is important that we aim at producing as little waste as possible. We need to learn to recycle and learn to fix and mend to maintain the value on the products and materials we have purchased. And we probably need to rent rather than own. There are some statistics showing that a car sits in a parking lot for about 95% of its lifetime. So the question is, do we all really need to own our own cars or our own vehicles, no matter what it is? Perhaps the most important thing is to try and find ways to refuse and reduce material consumption altogether. In our places of work, we can catalyze sustainable circular economy by encouraging others and showing leadership in identifying and implementing sustainable solutions in our organization. We can operate in a stakeholder network and join forces with people in the network and work with people who are interested in advancing sustainable circular economy. Then, when you are in a leader position, it is important to show leadership in setting ambitious targets for environmental, social and economic sustainability, and so to speak, walk the talk. So here in this picture, even Batman has decided to become circular economy man, ski man. So this is now concluding my presentation, and I hope that I've been able to raise interest in the topic and provide you with some basic vocabulary on sustainable circular economy and how to catalyze it. There are very many interesting websites and places to find out more about this, but I could point to few places. First of all, World Circular Economy Forum is an event organized annually by a Finnish organization, Sitra. And Sitra also has very many publications and other useful information on their website. Also, Ellen MacArthur Foundation is a really wonderful source of information on circular economy and examples from companies and public sector organizations and so forth. And I would also like to point you to our research project website, where we have a lot of academic publications on the topic and also some other publications. A lot of it is in Finnish, unfortunately, but there's also English content there. So I highly recommend to look for more information there as well. In this presentation, these are some of the references that I have been using. And I would like to point particularly to our book, the Routledge Handbook of Catalysts for Sustainable Circular Economy. And that is the open access book with over 100 authors and close to 90 chapters. There you can find a lot of information about circular economy in regulation, in business, in cities, and also methodologies for and tools for promoting sustainable circular economy in organizations. Thank you very much for listening and spending this 45 minutes with me thinking about sustainable circular economy. And I wish to invite you to follow our Research Center for Sustainable Circular Economy in LinkedIn and also visit our website. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.